minister delivered on its promise of job creation. If you take a look at the poll conducted by local circles, it shows that 63% feel that the unemployment rate has not come down. This is against 43% who felt the same way during the second year anniversary of the Modi government. That's the local circles poll. But let's take a look at the Labour Department's data. It seems to support that sentiment. In the first year, 4.21 lakh new jobs were created. There was a sharp drop in the second year to just over 1 lakh jobs. And in the third year, it has improved to 3 lakh jobs. All of this is still a fraction of the kind of jobs that India needs to create. But there could be a stark contrast, because if you take a look at what industry body CII is claiming, it claims that 37 lakh jobs have actually been created every year for the last 4 years. And this clearly is in contrast with the centre's own data. Now, in a bid to address this, the centre has set up a task force under the Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Arvind Panagaria to evolve a new method of calculating jobs data in India. So that, of course, is going to be the big priority as well as the big challenge. But let me go back across to our guest, Rakesh Bharti Mittal. You know, it's the CII data that's causing a lot of eyebrows to turn, because the CII claims that actually 37 lakh new jobs have been added every year in the past 3 years, and that is in stark contrast to the government's own data from the Labour Department.
Yes, Shireen, you know, we have to see this in the perspective of organized and unorganized sectors both. And that's where clearly CII's position is that 3.7 billion jobs have been created for the last 2 years, year-on-year basis. And we believe that now with the sentiment improving, this number will only go up.
Okay. Pankaj Patel, would you concur that actually, you know, we've seen an improvement on the jobs front, because even the government's own data doesn't suggest so?
So I think we are seeing that is an increase in the job picking up now, but I think we need to do much more. 2, 3 things the government has to do it. They have to put extra thrust on startup economy and the MSME sector, which are the largest employer in this. So we need to really put a lot of effort on MSME and startup area. We also have to start thinking about innovation in a big now, because I think job creation from a long-term perspective can only happen if we start looking at innovation in a country, as world is moving towards industrialization, industrial development 4.0. If we don't move up there, there's going to be a challenge for us to continue creating jobs. So I believe that government will start thinking on that area, and maybe some additional things would happen that would also give job boost.
Well, yeah, just 24 hours ago, in fact, we've seen the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion change the definition of startups in a bid to try and boost job creation and employment. But Shailesh, let me come back to you. Let's talk about India and its engagement with the rest of the world. In terms of FDI, the number continues to be very, very robust, record flows. But in terms of trade, you know, whether it's the FTA with the EU, or it's the FTA with Australia, or it's the bilateral investment treaty, on the trade front, things seem to have slowed down considerably, or at least have not moved significantly further. How would you assess the performance on the trade front?
So I think on the trade front, as you noted, things have been a bit of a disappointment. The sense I've gotten is that this administration, maybe I'm assuming a little too much here, but the trade aspect doesn't seem to be as much of a priority. Investments is a far greater priority, which is why when the Prime Minister traveled, he talked far more about investments. He talked about a macro, stable environment. Everything they've been doing in terms of reforms or in terms of engagement has been primarily focused on courting investments, less so on trade. And you're seeing this again with the bilateral investment treaties. A lot of them have been canceled. A lot of them are being reworked. It doesn't really seem like there's a lot of promise in terms of how the negotiations and engagements are going. So I think this is a little bit of a disappointment, but I don't think it's accidental. I think it may be a little bit by design. Furthermore, engagement, though, there seems to be a broader push for developing symbiotic relationships. And what I mean by this, if you see the government's engagement with the U.S., for example, it's primarily focused on defense, security, and investment. Those are the 3 areas. And if India can develop a partnership of sorts where there's greater cooperation on defense, but there's greater linkages between the U.S. investor community and the Indian economy, And by virtue of that, you're going to have a situation over the long run where America and India just need each other, and they're going to work together. And I don't think trade necessarily is as critical for the Indian side in this context, and I don't think they're looking at it in that way.
Okay, so it may not be a priority and a deliberately by design. That's Shailesh's point of view. But gentlemen, let me come to the last question and issue that I want to touch upon, and the promise of maximum governance and minimum government. Do you believe that it has really played out like that? There are concerns on whether we're harking back to an era of more price controls, for instance. There has been forward movement in terms of legislative action, at least in some areas. But do you believe that this that the promise of maximum governance and minimum government has actually borne fruit? Pankaj Patel, let me start by asking you.
So if we see from a GST regulations, the way they've been done it basically going into a way where there is going to be maximum governance and minimum government. That's what they're moving towards. But I think in other areas, we still have not made enough progress. So I think ease of doing business, we have done phase 1. I think it's time for now to move into phase 2, where we need to now do far-reaching changes into that area which can help. So a lot has been done on the foreign direct investment. I think we need to really look at what else we can do on Indian investment and Indian companies entering the new projects, etc. So that's going to be very important.
Okay.
I think, Shirin, one point which I just thought I would touch here based on your earlier discussion also is that the government policy-driven initiative have seen a major change happening. For example, the whole energy sector has completely transformed into a different thing. And I'm seeing that, like, apart from that, if you see some changes they did in budgeting process, the releasing the fund earlier, all these are actually enhancing the implementation phase. So I clearly see that you will see the results of that. Now you see the economy is a behemoth, and when it is gone down, to bring it back to again in a speed, it requires a lot of effort, and we need to have patience and time to really see the impact of that being seen. But I'm clearly seeing that these impacts are now being visible, and we will see much more.
Okay, phase 2 of the ease of doing business, that is the need of the hour now. Rakesh Bharati Mittal, that's the view coming in from your colleague at FICCI.
I fully endorse that, Shireen. As a matter of fact, I think there is a lot of work which has been done on the ease of doing business. Internationally, globally, India has moved up the rankings. But I think more importantly, the most innovative thing which has been done is bringing the states into competing with each other on ease of doing business. And if you see actually, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the Real Estate Regulation Act, I mean, there are many things which have been done, including doing away with more than 1,000 obsolete laws, rules, and regulations, are clearly bringing a lot of transparency into the system. Auctioning the natural resources in a very transparent manner. I think these are the areas which also is ensuring that there is a lot of investment which is coming from globally and will now start rolling out within India. And just one point I want to add here, on the capital formation, the audio was not clear, but my belief is on short to medium term, I think the private sector needs to be brought in to play a larger role in agriculture and food processing, because that is one area where capital formation has not happened, and the private sector can bring it in. While on the long-term perspective, there are many government schemes, including reforming the railways, the UDAN scheme, building new airports, 40 new airports, so on and so forth. So I think all in all, I can say that we see a much more positive way forward in the economy and almost all the sectors.
All right, so let me end